Andrew.
How you doing?
Oh, good. Oh, good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Good.
Just got off another call.
busy, yeah. Lots of stuff happening, yeah. So
Yeah, and we're trying to get our home office done. And my mum and dad have just been up this morning.
Okay.
And we've just installed all of we've got infrared heating.
Oh, right. Okay.
So the thermal heating, so it's like out on a kind of rolled mat. So I was going to put radiators in there, and then thought, well, now's the time to actually change this around. So thought it'd be a good idea to just quickly change it up at the last minute.
Is that all new technology and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, it's really low energy. So one of the kind of areas that we want to go into property-wise is eco-developing.
Yeah.
My younger brother's a renewable energies expert.
Yeah. Okay.
So what we're trying to do is try and have the kind of most eco-friendly home office that we can. So it's all built out of wood. It's all fully insulated. Low energy light bulbs, all of that. So because the other thing I was thinking over COVID was that a lot of people are going to want home offices. Yeah. So and I think eventually, when there's enough home offices in people's back gardens, someone in the government is going to be sat in a room and go, do you know what? We need to tax people that are working from home now. But there might be incentives if you've got an energy efficient one.
Efficient one. All right. Yeah. So you're thinking ahead there. That's
trying
great.
to.
Yeah. That's good. Thanks, Andrew, for coming to speak to us on the Business Wealth and Mindset podcast. It's always good to capture people's inspirational stories, and your background and what you're doing is quite inspirational in itself. So I thought probably just as a start, if we can begin just by you taking us through your journey as well, sort of from humble beginnings in your childhood, growing up, and then the first time you got into sort of entrepreneurship and how your journey progressed from that as well. So to get us going there, and then we can pick and discuss bits within that as we go along. Yeah, is that all right?
Yeah, great. Sounds good.
Good. So take us through that. Yeah.
So well, I guess my brother and I had no chance of getting out of property because my mum and dad used to buy really run-down properties and do them up whilst we were living in them. So I've got a picture of me at 3 years old actually helping the builder throw water and cement into a cement mixer.
Wow.
And then my brother came along fairly soon after that. We lived there for a while, moved to the next house, and then my dad started to get into a bit of motor racing because he liked that side of things. So he wanted to build a car, but we didn't have a garage. So we had to build a garage. So we built the garage.
Yeah.
Then the car that he wanted to build was a replica. So we built that car. And then my brother and I really got the bug for it. So a few years later, I built my own kit car that I built. But again, we'd run out of garages. So we had to build another garage. And then it was when that kind of after that, property wise, was 99. So I was 23 years old, and I used to live in the French Alps. My mum and my brother and I sat down one day and said, you know what, we could buy a flat outright and just split it 3 ways. So that's what we did. And in 2019, when I was doing some property training, I found out that was a joint venture. I'd never known it was called that. So I joint ventured with my brother and my mum when I was in 99.
Yeah.
We got service accommodation unit, or what people know as service accommodation, so holiday let. It was an absolutely brilliant little apartment in the French Alps. It was 27 meters squared. It was a studio flat, tiny. I could almost touch the wall from side to side. And we had a massive balcony, which was also 27 meters squared.
Wow.
Why on earth they thought you needed a balcony the same size as the entire flat, none of us could figure out. But So we ended up selling that because my brother then went to uni in Oxford, and he wanted to buy a property there for him and his mates to live in. So, and my mum wanted to buy another property close to us in the southeast. And I said, look, I'd like to keep it because I think the property market's going to go up. And I can't explain why, but I've just got a hunch. But I said, look, there's 3 of us in the deal. We always said if any one of us needed to sell, we'd take a vote on it. So let's take a vote. Obviously, the 2 of them voted sell. I didn't. So we sold it. I said, look, it's fine. It's fair enough. So my brother bought a property in Oxford that was a residential property that we then converted into, again, back then what was called a multi-let property, but everyone now knows it as a house of multiple occupation.
Yeah.
And my mum bought another buy-to-let down in the southeast, just a 2-bed end of terrace, which actually had quite a lot of land with it, but not quite enough to put another property on. But they're really good long-term investments, so that's what she wanted to do. I ended up buying a place down in Cornwall, and that was my second remote investment. So I started off thousands of miles away in the French Alps, and then narrowed it down to hundreds of miles down in Cornwall. So I've still got that today. It's great. It's been a great little property. So that was kind of where we got to, and then we kind of stalled because we were using, each time we were using funds to buy the next rental property, and then we'd have to save up the deposits. But my jobs kind of changed, and then I ended up setting up a classic car transport business. And I thought, what I'll do is, I've seen this hole in the market for the classic car transport. If I can build this business up enough, I can start generating enough cash to then generate deposits for more rental properties. So that was my master plan for 10 years. And I drove 1 million miles in 10 years. And then I started to get really bad back problems because I'd spent so long sitting down. To the point where you can't see on a podcast, obviously. I'm 6'2". My fiance is about 5'3" or 5'4", and she used to have to help me get in and out of the car because I was in that much pain. So I got told just prior to 40 years old that if I carried on at the same rate, in another 10 years I'd be in a wheelchair, and that didn't sit that well with me. So I literally kind of got out of that business overnight, jumped into a couple of other businesses with some friends for the next couple of years, and just kind of didn't really know where I was going. And I've always had this burning desire to be in property. Even from the age of 11 years old, I went to look at a school because my parents wanted to move us schools, and my brother and I were very fortunate. It was a choice that was out of our hands, but our parents wanted to send us to private school, and they had the facility to do that at the time. And they said, "Oh, do you like this school?" And I said, "Well, look, if I didn't go to this school, would you pay the school fees into a bank account for me so that when I'm 18 I can start buying property?" So my grandfather was an entrepreneur anyway. My uncle and aunt are, my cousins are, my mum and dad are. I was constantly surrounded by this. So for me, it was just normal. That was my normal. You know, someone who grows up in the kind of, that's surrounded by corporate dues, dinners, evenings. That's all they know. So that's their normal, although it doesn't seem normal to you or I or someone else. Is being an entrepreneur in your DNA? I don't know. I definitely think you can learn how to become an entrepreneur, but you have to be open-minded. For me, I had no choice. I was surrounded by it. It was always going to happen. And the fact that I was having that conversation as an 11-year-old with my dad, and my dad was like, "Well, look, I wasn't ever a strong academic at school. Like, my sports side of things always carried me through, and they knew that. And then I found out at 13, part of the reason why I wasn't a strong academic was I suffered with dyslexia, and still do, but not to the same extent, fortunately, because I ended up going to that school and I got a lot of extra help to kind of understand how to work around that. And that again has shaped where I've gone in the future, because I see problems, and when other people see problems, they just see a roadblock in front of them. I just see a problem and go, right, which way have I got to go to get round it, over it, under it, through it? It's a natural reaction, because I've always had to do that with my own situation. So yeah, and I managed to finally put it off in 2019 and started full-time in property on the 23rd of December 2019, just prior to COVID turning up and waving it at everyone.
Brilliant. So just on the point there, you mentioned you are surrounded by entrepreneurs, like your grandparents and yourself. How did that play out with your brother, though? Did he also pick up that entrepreneurial spirit?
He has got.
But
he has got that entrepreneurship in him. But because he's my younger brother, and I actually only found this out 2 years ago. I was talking to my mum, and I was just kind of starting to learn a bit more about why I think the way I do, or why I behave the way I do. And she was saying to me that she remembers as a kid, or when my brother and I were very, very young, she'd take us to the playground. So there'd be swings, there'd be slides, there'd be roundabout, merry-go-rounds, all the rest of it. And she said I'd get there with the pram and I'd unbuckle both of you, and my younger brother would be out of the pram. He'd almost sprinting Flintstone style in the pram. She unleashes him and he's off. And she said you'd get out of the pram and you'd go and stand on the edge. And I'd stand on the edge and I'd look everywhere. And she said to me, do you know why you did that? And I said, yeah, I do remember why I did that, because I'm the protector of my younger brother. That's my responsibility as an older brother. I had that, and I don't know where it comes from, but I've spoken to elder brothers and sisters over my whole life, and they've all had that exact same feeling, and none of them can understand where they've got it from. But there's something protectorial in me that has always looked out for my brother. My brother's 40. Well, he's 41 this year. He's 6'1". He's more than capable of taking care of himself. I still look out for him today. I just can't help it. The bonus is that he looks out for me as well now. So, but my mum said to me, "Why were you stood on the edge looking?" And I said, "Because one, I always protected my younger brother from bullies, so I wanted to assess the other children in the playground to make sure no one was going to pick on him, and if they did, then I was going to wade in there and help them out." Number two. There's loads of danger in the playground, so he could have fallen off a slide, off a swing, all the rest of it. I said he's got no care in the world. There's always someone to pick him up. It's either me or you. So that's although I didn't realise it at the time, that's what I was doing. So
wow, that's very interesting perspective to hear, isn't it? Because just like you talked about, is entrepreneurship, are we born with it, or is it in us? But it looks like there is something within us anyway, just like you mentioned, some protective spirit of some sort, which was subconsciously, or you didn't know about it. But when you look back, you can actually feel how you were doing certain things and how that impacted you going forward. So that's really quite interesting to hear, actually. So how did things then progress? You mentioned about negotiating with was it your dad or your grandfather about putting some money in an account instead of going to school. So how did that?
Yeah, with my dad. So that got nowhere. That was my first knockback at a deal. Structuring. The way that he'd structured the deal of sorting this out at school, it wasn't possible. And also part of the reason that I could get into the school was because of my sporting abilities. So it wasn't quite as simple and black and white as I thought at 11 years old. So I continued on with school, and then got to 18 and I left school, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I loved skiing and snowboarding, so I planned to go out to the French Alps in my gap year, but I needed to get a job. So I sat down and we'd worked for my dad ran a rubber company that did rubber extrusion, so like for car door seals and windows and that kind of stuff. And we'd worked in the warehouse, we'd worked in the offices, so he'd given us the opportunity to understand different levels of hierarchy within a business as well. And then my mum ran her own businesses, running loads of different things over the years, from upholstery. She was a designer dressmaker. So we kind of got to see different levels of business and different styles. So we got quite a good mix. And like I said, my grandfather was particularly entrepreneurial with what he did. And we spent a lot of time with him down in Cornwall in our summer holidays. So we were kind of surrounded by that. I mean, I think my earliest memory with him is being sat on his knee whilst he had this massive pink paper that was the size of me in front of him and smoking his pipe. And I later found out that massive pink paper was the Financial Times. And I'm going back 40 years, and he was, he was a farmer reading the Financial Times. So but he was also ex-RAF and an extremely shrewd man. So, but yeah, bouncing back, I at 18, I sat down and I said, right, I've got to get CVs out. So did all my CV, and back then it was fairly straightforward. Obviously it was pre-internet, pre-everything else, so everything was handwritten. And I sent my CV off to 150 different jobs. All types of stuff, ranging from something that I thought was ludicrous I'd never get, because I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose, and if you don't ask, you don't get. Right down to washing up dishes in a local pub. I got one response, and that was from that pub. Washing up dishes, and they said, would you like to come down and have a chat with us? So I said, yeah, no worries, just let me know when. So the next day I drove myself down there. They showed me around the kitchen, and they said, what experience have you got? And I kind of looked at them and thought, what do you mean, what experience have I got? It's washing dishes, how hard can it be? And he said, well, I said, well, I haven't got any experience in washing dishes in a pub or a restaurant, but at home my parents are quite busy, so my brother and I have looked after ourselves since we were teenagers. So and we've helped do chores in the house in order to make my parents' life easier. And he said, oh, well, we're looking for someone with a bit more experience. And he said, I'm sorry, I can't give you the job. So I said, okay, look, fair enough. I said, just one thing though, if I'm trying to learn here, I said, if I've got no experience and every employer is looking for someone who has got experience, how am I supposed to get that experience? And he stayed quite quiet on that one. And he said, yeah, I'll see your point. And I said, I said, no hard feelings, thanks for your time, and went away. And that was when I decided that the only person that was really going to help me was me. So I started to look through the local papers to see what was going on and what people wanted and what they were looking for. And again, pre-internet, there was the Friday ad and the local newspaper. Lots of people wanted gardeners, but at the time, every gardener wanted to try and charge tree surgeon prices. So I sat down and I thought, I can cut grass, I can cut hedges, because we do that at home for mum and dad. I'll speak to my dad about borrowing all the machinery that he's got, and if I break it, I pay for it, and I'll service it. So he now doesn't have to service hedge cutters, chainsaws, a lawnmower. He's bound to go for it. Plus, he knows he'll be helping me out a bit, and hopefully I can pull on his heartstrings. So that was no chance, but he saw the business sense in it, so he went for it. And I set up my own gardening business, and ran that for 6 months. Then went skiing for 6 months, and then came back. And the second year, we were so snowed under with work that I ended up employing 8 of my friends and running 3 different sites simultaneously throughout the whole of the summer. And that was when I really knew that it was going to be tough working for someone else. And I've done it a few times since, but it never really sits that well with me. I can work with people, I just can't work for them.